Hello, it's Mr. Jewell from Pace Again with a story this time about friendship. Just the other day I was walking past my old primary school and it brought back some very happy memories of my teachers and friends there from nearly 50 years ago. Amongst the teachers I remembered was the one who first told me off. The one who went to live in New Zealand, the one whose son was also in my class, the one who was just like a wise owl, the one who drove a red Mini, the one who played the piano brilliantly, and the one who first picked me for the school football team. I recalled the friend who could run really fast, the one who went on to make a blockbuster movie, the one who was fascinated by dinosaurs, the one whose brother now works with Take That. And that's just a few of them. So let me tell you something. You'll still be able to remember some of the people in your class today in 50 years' time. Now, one of my friends, Mark, liked doing many of the same things that I did. But one day he told me he was starting a new hobby. He was going to be taking up archery. That means he was going to learn how to shoot a real bow and arrow. Now, I had often played with a toy bow and arrow, a piece of string attached to a thin strip of bendy wood, and arrows with rubber suckers on the end to make sure no one got hurt and nothing got damaged. But he was going to do the real thing under expert supervision, firing arrows at a big target 20 or more meters away. I was just a little bit jealous. His exciting hobby reminds me of a story about one of the most well-known friendships in the Bible. The friends were called David and Jonathan. It's the same David as the one who defeated the Philistine giant called Goliath with a sling and 5 smooth stones, and who would also eventually become the second king of Israel. Now, the first king of Israel was called Saul. He had a son called Jonathan, who I mentioned in one of my stories a few months back. He was the one who had the armor bearer whose name we don't know, but who was a real encouragement to Jonathan when he faced a big challenge. Now, King Saul was very jealous of David because David became very popular after defeating Goliath. The people said the king had defeated thousands of enemies, but David had defeated tens of thousands. Saul was so jealous of David he wanted to get rid of him altogether. Meanwhile, Jonathan and David became the best of friends. Saul could see that God was very close to David, and so he sent him away with an army of 1,000 soldiers to fight battles far away. But his victories there made him even more popular. Saul became so angry that he decided to ask his son Jonathan to help him get rid of David. But as we know, Jonathan and David had become the closest of friends. What was he going to do? One morning, Jonathan heard that Saul was going to try and finish David off once and for all. So Jonathan told David to hide while he found out from his father Saul what the plan was. Jonathan tried to persuade Saul to change his mind and show kindness to David. At first, Saul listened to his son, and for a while he decided to be kind towards David. But it didn't last, so Saul sent some soldiers to try and capture David, but he managed to escape by climbing out of the window and leaving a David-shaped dummy in his bed. The next day, David was due to meet with the king, but he was afraid for his life, so he asked Jonathan for his help. He really needed to know whether it was safe to meet the king. So Jonathan promised to speak to his father and find out if David was still in danger. They had to think up a way of sending a message to David to let him know if everything was okay or whether he should run for his life. Jonathan came up with a very clever signal. Taking his bow and arrow, Jonathan would shoot 3 arrows towards the place where David was hiding. If the arrows landed to the side of David, he would know he was safe to come and meet the king. But if he shot the 3 arrows beyond David, right over the top of him, the signal would be that he should run for his life. Well, what was going to happen? Would Saul be kind and friendly, or would David need to escape to safety? Jonathan spoke with his father, the king, and then walked outside. He lifted his bow and fired his arrows. They whizzed through the air and landed with a thud in the ground. way beyond where David was hiding. The signal was clear. David was in deadly danger and must leave once and for all. Sadly, David and Jonathan hardly saw each other again, but they remained the best of friends. Perhaps some of us may have friends who are as special as that. Someone once said that the best way to get good friends is to be a really good friend. I wonder if we could set ourselves some friendship targets. When archers fire their bow and arrows, they aim at big targets that have different colour rings. The rings are white, black, blue, red and gold, which get smaller as you move from the white outer ring all the way to the gold inner ring. So our white target could be to give someone a friendly smile or a wave. Our black target could be doing kind deeds like sharing or being helpful. The blue target could be to use kind and encouraging words to others. The red target could be to be a great listener. We have one mouth and two ears, so perhaps we should listen twice as much as we speak. And finally, the gold target, perhaps we can do something that really puts the needs of others first. I wonder what that might be for you. So let's take aim for our targets and see how we do. I'm going to finish with a prayer. Please join with me or just sit quietly if you'd prefer. Dear God, thank you for the great example of friendship that David and Jonathan give us. Thank you too for the friends that we have. And please help us to make it our aim to be a great friend to others. And please help us to find creative ways of showing that just now. Amen.